what do you think about the difference of IR sensors versus Thermocouple tyre pyrometers? Right now, I have a set of Izzy Racing IR sensors on the car measuring tyre temperatures, but I've read that IR sensors only measures the surface temperatures. What is the difference between taking them for measuring the tyre temps on track? Yeah, so that's a really good question there, Ing. There's a whole lot of different schools of thought of this, but in reality, all of these different sources of information tell you something a little bit different. Neither of them are necessarily better than the other, but they're telling you different things. The tyre surface temperature is telling you something, which is what you're getting from your infrared external sensors there. That's telling you something more about the way the surface of the tyre is instantaneously reacting to the track surface. So that's giving you like a real good transient, what I mean by that is like just something that's happening over very short spaces of time, reading of how the tyre is being loaded. So it is a useful piece of information to understand. If I could only have one, if I could only have one, either measuring it in the pit lane with a pyro or with an infrared sensor, I would probably actually pick the pyro in the pit lane. Now the reason for that is, and that's my preference, and maybe that's not something that everyone would agree with, but the problem with taking the surface temperatures is that because it's only giving you the surface, it's not giving you any readout on the temperature of the construction of the tyre. That's that whole structure of the tyre that's underneath the tread surface. So when a tyre is new, a race tyre anyway, you've probably got between 3 and 4 millimeters of tread depth before you get into the construction of the tyre. And the construction of the tyre, where you've got all of those different clever materials, different combinations of steel and aramid and rubber compounds and all that stuff, that's actually where a lot of the performance of the tyre is dominated. Probably counterintuitively to what a lot of people probably think, a lot of it is actually happening in the structure of the tyre, and that temperature and stress distribution inside the construction of the tyre is really what's dominating a lot of the performance. Now that's a long way of saying that using a tyre pyrometer, we're getting below the tread temperature and we're actually getting into the guts of that construction. So while there are some big disadvantages with using the tyre pyrometer, because obviously it takes some time to get into the pit lane, the temperature is going to drop, the temperature is going to spread to some extent within the surface or within the construction and the surface of the tyre, it is actually giving you a really good reading of what's happening in the construction. Now, one step up from that as well, and particularly because you mentioned Izzy Racing, they're not the only ones that do it, but I know they do this product. They do their internal tyre temperature sensors. They have an option to have internal infrared sensors. Now, that is a bit of a game changer, and it's been around for a while from a few different manufacturers now, but the idea there is that it's actually, rather than giving you an external temperature distribution of the tread, it's giving you an internal temperature distribution, and you're actually looking at the inside carcass, which is giving you a much clearer picture of what's actually happening in the construction of the tyre. So that's another something else for you to think about. Maybe if you want to go blow a whole lot more money in some more sensors, but I would say that's probably a step above both of those in some respects, having that internal construction temperature distribution, just because it tends to average things out a little bit more, gives a bit more of a clearer picture over an entire sequence of corners or even an entire lap. That question was taken from one of our free live lessons. If you like free stuff and you want to expand your knowledge, click the link in the description to claim your free spot to our next live lesson. You'll learn about optimizing the performance and handling of your car on the racetrack, as well as improving your skills behind the wheel. Plus, you'll have the chance to ask your own questions, which we'll be answering live.